Hey, everyone. Welcome to the All Stats No Res podcast, the premier podcast for and by the Dominions 5 multiplayer community. My name is Articulatimus, aka Charlie. With me, I'm one of the co-hosts, and with me, as always, is HP, Munchcraft,
Yep.
Soron, and Rovsea.
That's
What's
right.
going on, HP? How you doing so far?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm not in any active games right now, but one might be about to start. So
Sure.
be
So,
something.
are you working on anything in Dominions 5 right now? Are you testing anything specific? What's been going on with you in the world of Dominions?
So right now I am just looking at some very mostly conventional middle age Abyssia builds in for this game that's coming up. There's a lot of other stuff that I want to do, but being lazy and not. I want to start modding like the Pretender gods, but I haven't been doing that. I really want to get in a game of as Iru because everyone's wrong about them, and I want to show them that
I
I'm
agree with
wrong.
you because I'm
Yeah.
also in that same game and I'm playing Iru. So, but wow, I'm Abyssea. What a thrilling, complex nation. No, I'm kidding. But
I,
that's great. Soron, how about you? What are you working on, Dominions?
So recently, the the most recent thing I went over was the Seventh Path's healing human turbocomps, which has been interesting. I still need to do more research on that. Need to figure out how the heal mechanic works a little bit more. Before that, I was investigating into assassination battles with crossbows. As in the past, they were completely terrible. But now, after the update that came in April, they are suddenly incredibly accurate again. So Evos might be even better now too. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that.
So that's super relevant to our topic this week. Which is going to be evocations. But before that, also very relevant. If I recall, before the episode, you mentioned that the testing you're doing with the assassins and the crossbows and whatnot. You admitted that you were wrong because Rovsea was the one that kind of who's with us as well. Kind of asserted that they've gotten a lot better, right? And that's what led
Yes.
to the testing.
Oh, absolutely. In the past, they used to miss very frequently,
Right.
and now the first round they seem to be incredibly accurate. Like 80% of the time, they will hit their target. It feels like, I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but it definitely feels like most of the time they will hit turn one, presuming that they target the mage and not someone else. But yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
interesting.
So, speaking of that, Rob CA, what about you? What are you working on aside from
Yeah, I
proving
was
Sauron
doing
wrong?
some of the same stuff with Soron. I was testing human HP turbo comedians. Been testing some Micklin and Lanka builds too, just to work out how I feel on those nations, although I don't really have any games starting with them soon. I do want to point out for the assassins, although this is getting a little bit technical, it only works to a certain extent. You have to hit a certain threshold on precision because they start missing pretty quick once you are using lesser precision items.
Assassinations take place during the dark, right? So, what is that specific
Uh,
mode you're looking for?
not always, but most
Not
Not
all.
always. It's 50-50. But yes, the I am a pretty much a Joman main. I think it's pretty well known in the community. So the assassin I use is the ninja when I'm doing my tests, and ninjas happen to be both dark vision 50 and the highest base precision assassin in the game. So they don't really care if it's nighttime.
Gotta hit those shurikens,
Okay,
man.
very cool. That's awesome. All right, so moving on. As I said, this week's topic is going to be evocations. So that's going to lead into our first segment, which is going to be Pog or Dog. So we kind of a mixed consensus this week. Obviously, when we talk about any kind of topic, there's going to be edge cases, there's going to be nuance, but just in general, overall, what we consider to be in comparison to its contemporaries. So with that said, I am leaning on the dog side. I don't find evocations very compelling compared to some of its direct comparisons or other schools competitors. What about you, HB?
Oof. I was pretty on the fence for this, but I think I am going to lean more towards the Pog side. Evocations went from being one of the most overrated paths to, I think, a little underrated at this point. What about Rob? What do you think about him?
I'm gonna go solidly on the Pog side. I think there's a lot of really powerful spells in Evocation. And while I don't think it's the strongest magic school, I don't think you could claim that there's anything else besides Alteration that's clearly better. So
Blood.
it's debatable, which we can debate later if we want to. So
Right.
I think Evocation is looking pretty Pog right now.
What's your take, Soron?
Generally, I'm on the fence because of recent patch notes. In the past, I would absolutely say that generally Evo is a pretty dog school, excluding some spells. I'm going to lean dog this week, but I could change my mind in the future. I really need to see how big the changes are for some of the projectile spells in specific. But the AoE spells are kind of pog if you can get them to work and people don't have the resistance.
So, as a disclaimer, I actually really like a lot of the spells in Evocation. But when I think about just my overall take is, why would I ever, in most cases, again, I know some nations will be okay with going down evocations like pretty quickly. But in most cases, why would I ever go down evocations as opposed to like alteration, conjuration, or even construction in some cases? So when I look at it from that lens, then I'm like, okay, well, evocation is kind of underwhelming. Those power spikes I'm hitting when I'm hitting like conjuration, I can really feel that. Whereas with evocation, it's not as obvious, or it takes like a little bit more investment, for instance.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Evocation, its power spikes are a little more evenly distributed, and they're very like path dependent where your power spikes are, because there's not cycles in Evocation like the elementals in Conjuration, where every path gets a certain thing at a certain point. But I think for Evocation, like, you know, Wailing Winds, you're gonna notice that power spike like really hard. Like that is an active goal. Now, granted, that's a cross path, so it's you can't rely on just that to hold up the entire school. But I think different nations want to go different levels of Evo at different times, and it has some pretty big ones in there, regardless.
Yeah, Wailing Winds is a fantastic spell, obviously. But like again, that's quite a bit of investment. And while you're going down that path, what other power spikes are you hitting along the way? Let's say with that Wind Death cross path. Like, what's really giving you value on your way down to Wailing Winds?
Well, generally, early evocation is like is a defensive path. So if you're in the death and air, then like level 2, obviously getting lightning bolt as an early defensive spell, and then getting Thunderstrike is sort of a disruption spell, missed if you're in a crossbow meta, that sort of thing. Will get you value. Now, granted, like 5 is like it gets you Storm, but like that's not really a power spike on its own.
I would
Yeah,
disagree with that actually. If you were talking about an air nation, Storm is one of the most important spells for air magic on the combat field, just in general. So I'd say it's a pretty important one as well.
I think Storm is a support spell mainly.
Yes, it's a very important one.
It is.
It does so much that
But
it's
on
kind of
major,
ridiculous.
let me ask you this though: on major air nations, are you not going down Conjuration first? You're going down Evocation first?
Oh, I think that this idea that these spell schools don't work together is kind of misleading, right? Like any elemental spell in the game is going to be aided by going to Conjuration 3 first because that's where all of the path boost spells are, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter which other spell school you're looking at. So you can't just take these in a vacuum.
I think that's misleading because Cons 3, you path boosting spells, but really it's just for fire and earth. Yes, you get summon storm power, but that doesn't. You can't use summon storm power till you have storm, which is Evo 5. You do have power of the spheres that comes up, which boosts everything. That's 100 fatigue, and you need the astral anyways. So I don't really subscribe to like that, at least for Evos.
I like to give a cheeky little answer to Charlie's original question. Yes, Charlie, I am going Evo before I go Conj as an Air Nation, because I'm probably going Lightning Bolt as a defensive spell before I'm going for the level 5 elemental.
Well, I agree. I mean, I do that as well. But that's a really cheap like pickup, right? But when we
Yeah,
like
right,
if we're
right.
like some of the later stuff, you significantly like there's a gap in the middle there. Like the early evocations, like Evo 2, I'm really a fan of as well. But if you're trying to go down to like Wailing Winds, there eventually you do hit a gap. Now Storm obviously is an
I
outlier.
don't agree with that. I don't think you
I
hit a
think
gap.
Sleep Cloud's a pretty good spell you can pick up at Evo 3. The crosspath spells with air are pretty good. However, this all requires you to have the crosspath and have the actual access like to the spells in general. Like if you're going down Evo and you only have Death, like he brought up Wailing Winds. Wailing Winds is one of the best spells in the game. However, what
Right.
Death gives you in Evo, outside of Wailing Winds, is a lot of dog shit. Shadow Blast, one of the worst spells you can cast in the game. Do not listen to anyone else in the community who say to put a gem on. That spell will miss. Like maybe it's better with the patch, but like in the past, that I've seen that spell cast like in battles 10 times and gotten negative value.
It is true that Death in this spell school is just dead for the first 3 levels, or for the first 2 levels, and then like it doesn't get good spells.
It's not dead for the first 2, man. It's dead for almost the first 5. like those spells you are better off summoning a single skeleton over shooting a Shadow Blast, unless your opponent is conveniently in a box and they are not immune to your Shadow Blast. I would say Shadow Blast is great versus box formation, but otherwise it is
many such cases.
It's a skill issue.
Issue, yeah.
I mean, there is Banefire. That's a great spell that in death that you later get, but like I've never been sold on Banefire darts or Nether darts.
See, I actually like Nether darts.
Nether darts is fine. Yeah.
But it's Evo 7. It's so late.
Nether. Oh wait, okay. Nether darts, which is different from.
Nether bolt is garbage,
okay,
but Nether darts I kind of like.
Well, hold on.
I've maybe they're better with the precision update, but like people have told me like to cast these spells. I've tried it, and it's either missed or just hit my own units. Maybe that's a skill issue. But I generally like in the past, like a lot of my experience with Evo has been with before the patches. So maybe some of these projectiles are actually good now, but I'm going to go with my past opinion and say they're probably dog shit.
Yeah, in a meta with like Doomstack v Doomstack, and I mentioned this outside the podcast as well, but like, you're going to get a lot of value. But I think in most cases, if you're playing against more agile opponents that aren't just running like straight into each other,
right?
Like you're losing a lot of that value from evocation. So again, if you're aside from dipping into a few levels to get those essential spells like Lightning Bolt. What I feel like is that there's too much opportunity cost going heavy into evocations until much later in the game. Like if I'm looking from the lens of like early mid game and I'm trying to survive, I'm trying to win my first war, I'm not really relying on evocations most of the time.
I think evocations are great for your first war, and then they kind of fall off for your second war.
My whole issue with the school is like, unlike a school like Alteration where you can kind of blindly research, in my opinion. You can't really blindly research Evo because Evo is more of a situational school. So I generally would recommend players to like only go there if you like. Let's say you're fighting someone sacred and you can't find an answer. Sometimes the answer that's efficient will be in Evo, and you absolutely should go and get it. But it's really situational, and it'll depend, based on the situation, whether you should go up it. Running it up blindly, I think, is like generally something you shouldn't do.
You have to really think about it. I agree with that.
I would agree that running up Evo blindly is bad, but I don't think that's because the school is just bad. Like I would say Thom, even though it has some of the most powerful spells in the game, is like kind of a bad school. And I would also say you can't run it up.
It's a supporting school.
Right. I would also say you can't run it up blindly, but I think even though you can't run up Evo blindly, that's not because the school itself is like bad. It's because different paths hit their spikes in Evo at different points in time, and so there's not like one thing where you're just like, oh yeah, you hit this level and then anybody who's anyone can like.
Well, I think it's I think it's
question real
actually
quick.
when I sorry. You want to go? Sorry, I interrupted you.
You can go first if you like.
When I said it blindly, I meant like your first research goal, like, and that's like because like you're not gonna know what to like adapt to in your game until like you get neighbors and you figure out where you gotta go and you talk to people. Maybe you nap a few people. Like if you're not gonna know what to research, so like going up Evo with that first research, like I generally wouldn't recommend it. It is situational though. Like maybe you want Sleep Cloud or maybe you want Acid Rain. And maybe that's okay to blind up, but like if you only have like fire or something, like no. Or if you just have water, no.
Well, I'm thinking specifically of like uh, I've mentioned them before, but like Sulfur Haze and Lightning Bolt, I think it's fine to blind up Evo for, especially Lightning Bolt because it's a defensive tech against elite units. Sulfur Haze is more of a chaff clearer, but it's very good at it. People will probably take blesses against Sulfur Haze, but I think if you're in Freezing Mist, Sulfur Haze, Lightning Bolt, cross paths, then it is fine to blind go up Evo and have some early defensive techs. If you are a nation where you're wanting to use your mages for early defense and aren't like the guy who's going to be rushing people with sacreds.
In the all resist meta, sounds risky. I'd rather just put the points other
Will
places.
take like 5 points of lightning resist, and you could still clap.
No,
Lightning Bolt.
You have it backwards. They'll take 5 points of cold resist, and maybe they'll have 10 of light. Now, I think 5 points of cold resist absolutely fine. If anything, I'd run 0 cold resist because, yeah, you don't need to. It's Freezing Mist, Frozen Heart, and Falling Frost. Maybe there's another one I'm missing.
Okay, I think we did run
Rip?
over Rovsea a little bit there.
Oh yeah, we
make a point.
Yeah,
I did have a point to make. The point was made that Death doesn't really have any good spells before maybe level 5 in Evocation. Alteration's probably the strongest spell school in the game. Probably. Where are all the strong Death spells in levels 1 through 4 of Alteration?
Ooh.
That's true.
I mean, it's not going to apply to that.
It's true, pretty true. Also, I think the earliest levels of Evocation are probably the worst. Level 1 in Evocation, it's pretty bad. Level 1 Alteration, also pretty bad. Think that's fine. Charlie was making the point earlier that there were holes in the power spikes in Evocation. I would say it depends upon the magic skill. Because I think that there are valuable spells after at least level 1 in every school or at every level of evocation. Right? Like Sleep Cloud, that is a useful spell. It is a pretty strong spell, maybe even underrated. It's a pretty good spell.
Maybe someone should mod the casting AI to cast it more.
Don't you suggest? People will think that you're recommending Lucid's spell AI mod. Like, listen, I appreciate what Lucid has done for the community. However, I really don't recommend his spell casting AI mod. No offense to him. I think he's great, but
I'm shilling my own stupid AI mod just for the audience.
Also, I have a response to Rovsea. So you said like there's not a lot like there's useful spells in Evocation, like Alteration, but the difference is like the useful spells in Alteration are going to be ubiquitous because of nature, specifically in MA and EA because you can grab protection. So that's like a ubiquitous thing most nations in the game will have access to, whereas like a lot of the spells in Evocation are not going to be level 1s. They're going to be level 2 of some specific path. Like Sleep Cloud is an N2 spell. You will have to give all your N1s a gem to cast it. If you have N2, it's great to spam. But yeah, a lot of the Evos are level 2s, which makes them, not the best sometimes. Like,
yeah, I mean, to add on to that, and just for clarification, like whenever we say something is like, at least for me, if it's something good or bad, it's not necessarily that it's actually bad. It's just more so that, okay, is this something that's applicable in more situations? And I would rather take it most of the time. And that's how I kind of view it. Like, yeah, there's absolutely nice things in Evocations. I really like some of the spells in Evocation. And there's probably going to be a lot of, or at least some nations that do go down evocations first blindly, even when you don't know who your neighbors are. But I don't think that's the case most of the time. So that's why I'm kind of leaning on the dog side. I think alteration by far is way more useful in general, and I'm a big conjuration
Okay,
fan.
I'm
Summon all
just
kinds of
gonna
shit.
just gonna say this now. Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Alteration, in my opinion as well, alteration probably straight up the strongest magic school in the game.
I would
I don't think evocation is necessarily bad just because it's not as good as alteration.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, that's fine. But I would in more cases go down, not just alteration, but like conjuration or construction first as well. And sometimes even a
Well,
champ.
if you're talking about conjuration, right? Like you're going down conjuration for the elementals, right? And you hit that power spike, which is huge, at level 5, and then elementals will solve a lot of your mid game problems. But then it like conjuration after elementals like majorly falls off a cliff until the like
Yeah, I agree.
ultra high, stuff, which even then is just more of a support path than a main path. I wouldn't call conjuration necessarily a particularly strong path just because it has that strong 5 for every elemental power.
You said it yourself. Like it solves a lot of your problems in the mid game in more cases than not.
Sure.
Even though it does fall off, which I agree with, but like that's a huge noticeable power spike.
Evocation 5 is a noticeable power spike as well.
For what outside of storm and earthquake? You do get
Falling
orb lightning
fires and
in
falling frosts, gifts from heaven,
I don't
poison
like gifts.
cloud.
Poison cloud's really good. I think the falling spells, although I like them, they're situational. I think gifts could be really good, especially versus B-Bond nations. I haven't seen enough tech with Healing Mist, although before the podcast, HP did bring up Zan using it late game, but I don't know how good it is, honestly. I haven't seen enough Healing Mist to really give a concrete opinion. But Shadow Blast is absolute trash, and Astral Geyser is situational. I think it horror marks, right?
It does horror mark, and it does armor negating damage in a wide AoE,
but it's not like a good. It's like if you're comparing Astral Geyser to Incinerate, for example, like Incinerate's way better, presuming they don't have FR.
Yeah.
I really like Astral
debatable.
Geyser with the caveat that it is somewhat hard to set up like large Astral Geyser attacks. Like you need a support path. You need like Light of the Northern Star or Communion or something like that.
It doesn't even
because very few people have like Astral 3 native that can afford to be spamming evocations into the enemy blobs. But like a lot of AN rolls is very good.
Oh, are you talking? Sorry, you're talking about Astral Geysers, not Stellar, right?
Yeah.
Astral
Okay,
Geyser.
Stellar. So if you've only played Dom 4, we should probably touch on Stellar Cascades, which was very meta. It was great before, and then they half the effectiveness straight up of the spell.
Yeah.
I think if you have a big enough communion, it can still be as good. But
No.
I don't. No.
It can't be as good. You can make it better,
usable,
but Stellar Cascades just got nerfed into the dirt. It used to be like a serious like go for it tech, and now it's like
they should buff
it's
it.
12 AP, so you can actually defeat it with
It is
armor.
25 AP, to be fair. Yeah, it is not 12
Fatigue.
AP, it is
You're
25.
right. I was looking at
It's
the wrong
fatigue
one.
damage. Yeah.
It's 25 AP fatigue damage. Yes. If that was not fatigue damage, that would be a scary spell. But
That would be disgusting. Oh, just 25
Yes.
damage?
AoE 5
I
with 100 precision.
want to take a moment to use that as an example. If we view everything in Dominions that we can do as kind of like a toolbox, again, going back to what I was saying, I just think Evocations is a smaller toolbox than what a lot of the other schools are offering, right?
I think it's
given that Stellar Cascades example, like Stellar Cascades, again, used to be super strong. It used to solve a lot of issues, a lot of threats that you would come up against. In the state that it is right now, it's just completely gutted, and it's kind of like taken out of that. Like it doesn't solve those issues that it used to in Dominions 4.
I think if you want to get the best, honest, the best way to really get an understanding of evocations is downloading this completely stupid mod called Magic Explodes.
Oh yeah.
Was developed a few years back at this point, which is crazy to me. I helped develop it, where they absolutely crank the fuck out of so many of these spells, and like the projectiles are insane. And I don't know if they're better now, again, because of the projectile fix, but you would have Fireball shooting like 50 projectiles and watching like 45 of them still miss with you blanketing the entire... Like, just to show how bad Evo was with some of the projectile spells, like, you could crank these numbers to absolute ludicrous, and they would still manage to miss.
So Evocations is in fact Pog in Magic Explodes, and even that had some
Well,
issues.
no, it was still they had to crank it so
You
high.
clearly didn't try using Falling Frost or any of the other ones, because those guys.
Well,
whew.
let's
those were good
put it in a little bit of context. I think we would all agree that generally the projectiles in Evo are the worst ones, the worst part of the school, and the better ones are either clouds or spells where it's just a hit scan, it's just a point and click. Like lightning bolt or fire cloud or whatever, where it just hits squares or falling fires. You're right.
Acid rain, falling.
I do think that Evocation gives you tools that are very difficult to deal with, though.
Poison Cloud gets overshadowed by Foul Vapors, and that's
Yes.
like a fantastic answer that everyone forgets about. But that's because Foul Vapors is the best design.
One of the strongest spells in the game. Maybe not the strongest, but one of the strongest.
Like, if you don't want to use Foul Vapors to kill Ulm, just give them Poison Cloud and they will cry. Am I Ulm?
Yes, Middle Age Ulm. But let me give you an example of what I meant. Right, Wrathful Skies, if you have the proper setup to use it, absolutely demands very specific counters from the opponent that you're fighting it with. Right, it's a powerful tool. It's hard to deal with if you don't have a good counter to it.
Right, but it's also hard to set up.
It is hard to set up, but there's a lot of things that are hard to set up in this game that are still very powerful. We were just talking about communions earlier today. Those are harder to set up.
Very true.
I think it depends what lens you want to look at it from. Do you want to look at things from the lens of someone who is getting into the game or that is middle experience with the game and probably doesn't know the specifics, or do you want to get into like the absolute echelon where they know all the setups to do these things?
This is an elitist podcast, so yeah,
we're very elitist.
I am evaluating this from like, yes, expert. I feel bad saying expert because, like, am I an expert in Dominions?
I don't.
Dominions 5 is not a solved game. Can we agree on that? It is not a solved game.
Right.
So, but we know a lot more than we used to.
Yes. Like, no matter what YouTuber tells you that they think they have solved the game, they have not solved the game. It does not matter.
Like, if you were a noob, I would just tell you to just go Conjuration 5 all the time, every single time. And just use elementals to solve your problems until they stop working.
Lola special,
right? Which it works. It's a first order optimal strategy. It's one of the noob tubes.
You're gonna have to add something in the video. What's a noob tube?
Well, we could be elitist about noob tubes too.
Brain dead strats.
A Call of Duty reference? What?
Yeah,
it is.
Now that I'm looking at it more closely, I think one of the big things about this school is that it is mainly a school for solving armies. It has other things, but if you look at most of their powerful stuff, it is less about like solving thugs or super combatants or like any of the other problems you have in the game, and mostly about like, hey, we're doing big AoE things. If we have an army, we're gonna solve it.
Right. And funnily enough, a lot of the evocations are also like solved with like other evocations. Like you mentioned, like mist and rain and stuff like that.
Right.
Did we mention rain? Rain shouldn't exist in the game, or its effect should not. Rain should honestly, its effect should be changed.
Unless I am mistaken, it's the earliest spell in the game that has a battlefield-wide effect too. Evocation
Rain
Fucking
is-
level 2.
Is bullshit.
level
Yeah,
3.
they
It should
No.
not be there. It should either have its effect change or be way up. Like, what the fuck is that doing there? Get that shit out of there.
I mean, I didn't notice this before, but evocations do have a small cycle of just hosers where you get rain, mist, and then a couple of levels later you get storm.
Storm is like the most overloaded spell in the game, by the way. Halves precision, halves missiles in the air,
Yeah,
gives
I
the
agree.
rain effect, boosts your air mages, prevents people from flying. It's like
It's all
doubles the effectiveness of Wrathful Skies. It's like, how much does this do?
it's
Does
all
it need to do all of that? Maybe.
it's all the things that would happen in a storm. Listen, the only thing that it's missing is that it should just randomly show up on battlefields some of the time because it's how weather
Doesn't
works.
it do that? I thought that happened.
No, it doesn't. What do you mean doesn't it do that?
I felt like that was a thing, or maybe it's rain. I'm thinking of.
There's
No, Rains doesn't
Rain-
have to.
You can cast Perpetual Storm.
okay,
Oh, okay.
unless I'm thinking of a previous version of the game, rain can show up in growth heat provinces.
I don't believe that's correct.
That
I
Take
don't-
heat because you're a
outdated.
fire nation. Nerf yourself.
Well, I have heard that before, but that could be like from fucking Dom 4 or some shit.
Also, rain turns into snow in cold provinces, right?
Yes,
Uh,
but snow is just weaker rain.
Yeah, snow is weaker, so it's funny because like you're incentivized as a fire nation to take cold scales in that sense to prevent that counter from countering you as hard. Sorry, I'm just thinking
Thereby
about
nerfing yourself. Yeah.
Not worth it.
It's just they didn't think about rain when they designed it. They're like, yeah, fuck fire.
I think they thought about it. I just think Illwinter massively overestimates like fire AOE shit. You know, that's why
I
everything
think
in
Illwinter
Elysium is
overvalues evocations.
overpriced.
That's why they had to put rain in the game.
Oh.
Damn.
Look, after Dom 4 and they had to nerf Rain of Stones into the ground just to balance the game. Think of how great they were.
True, but it's not Dom.
Listen,
4.
they recently buffed Rain of Stones. It's coming back. No one knows yet.
We're
It
gonna
hits
make
you in
a-
the head more often, therefore actually doing things more often.
What level is that spell?
It is
Oh,
Evocation
7.
7, but it is very easy to cast.
It is
Yeah,
very
good old
easy.
ROS
The
traps.
crosspath.
Love it.
Yeah.
All you need is Earth 1, Air 1, and you can do the rest with gems.
Take one of your dog shit. What is it? You can get that
Exactly.
on, like, the
Yes,
man
you can do
mage.
this on. Oh, yeah.
No, the
See,
Yeoman.
I'm going to bring it back to Geoman. I don't want to do that. But you can.
Stop referencing
just take some
Joman.
random
Someone's
names.
just gonna get reference someone else.
It's a good nation.
He's
Okay, they have good
Rovsea.
names.
Yeoman one
Fuck
trick,
Joman
it's
and
okay.
fuck you.
Geoman can also cast Acid Storm, which is also an Evocation 7.
Acid
In
Storm.
fact, there are, what is that,
Wow, they
four
can cast all
different
these
battlefield clears at the same level. You have Wind of Death, Rain of Stone, Acid Storm, and Firestorm.
Oh, dude, we totally haven't touched on that. Winds of Death is a great spell.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
it is. You know what
It
else
is.
is?
But again-
Stygian Range for certain nations.
Yeah, but if you don't have that crosspath, next me.
Sticky and Rains is double situational. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
dude, no one talks about
Just
clouds.
play
of
Late
death.
Age Atlantis, and then you go straight to Evocation 7, and you're like, wow, I can use all of those.
Wait, HP, have you ever seen Cloud of Death in a game?
I don't think not.
I don't think I've
seriously.
ever seen that spell
Okay,
cast.
It's
I
very
guarantee,
hard to
I'm
cast.
looking at the description, I guarantee you it's a good spell. Nobody ever casts it.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just
just look
it's
at
just
it.
so restrictive. Like you can, if you have that much death, you're usually casting battlefield stuff. I guess people should maybe put skull sticks on their vampires more.
Dude, they should totally
Yeah.
wait, the spell? Why is this
Look at the
bad?
scaling.
What
It's
is, wait,
great.
are people this just goes to show that the minions players are
Yeah, it's
so
slept on,
lazy.
right? It's fatigue 10.
Well,
Wait, what
it's at 7, right? So you have to be an Evo 7
Yeah.
and then have a
Yeah, but
death
people-
caster.
The thing is, like,
People
there are
still wanna
strong
cast.
spells at Evo 7. You're going to Evo 7.
Right,
You got
true.
Firestorm, you got
True.
Murdering Winter.
Hold on, gonna cast my
What is
horde of
that?
skeletons for the third time. Fucking
I do
And
wanna,
if you have a high
I
enough
probably
Death
should do
Mage
that,
cast this spell, it's basically a battlefield wipe, let's be honest.
while we're in Evo, I don't want to go Mind Hunt to go unmentioned because it is
Oh,
an exception to the normal Evo rules, where normally Evo is about like solving lots of troops with AoE damage, but Mindhunt is just a remote attack. Fuck you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I removed it from my
Mindhunt.
game.
You also need to go up thaumaturgy to make
Yeah,
it
you have to
true.
be Thom 5 to really enable it. Yeah, which
True.
you should, because otherwise you need Thom 2 to enable it. It is a very powerful, very cancer spell.
Yeah, casting
In
it
that
with
same
Mind
vein,
Burns is kind of sad.
let's also not forget the totally non-controversial spell, Magic Duel.
No, you want to talk about Pog?
The
I'm
CBM
not gonna
crowd, let's delete it.
I'm not gonna say much about it. I'm just gonna bring up that it exists. We can leave it
Does
there for now,
exist.
I guess.
Does
I
exist.
mean, if you understand how Magic Duel works, like if you actually understand how it works, I don't think it's that bad. I think a lot of people who hate the spell just don't know how it functions. I guess I can be a teeny bit technical here. So it's based on how the spell is read, going from the left of the screen, going down and up, kind of like printing. So you can kind of manipulate it in that form, and then it's not as bad, but it is frustrating.
I think it is essentially oppressive if you have a nation that is either got the cheapest S1s or the, like, say, around 100 gold ish S2s up against, like, a nation that has rare S access. But
Yeah.
I think that's kind of. I don't think that's bad for the game necessarily. I think that's
You
kind
can
of the
bait
cost
people
of doing
into.
this.
They bring a shitload of mages to
Yep.
Magic Duel, and you rip that mage out, and
Listen,
then
it's not a weakness that late age Flagra or Citus needed. That's all I'm gonna say.
True, but Nazca can get fucked.
um, I don't know. I think some of the Nazca hate maybe is a little overblown. Winter's nerfs are some of the most disgusting you can see in game design. With how they handle things, because I think they nerf things like 2 to 3 times without testing or seeing the feedback of their changes. So,
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about half scaling again? No.
Yeah.
what the
No,
worst
it's-
patch in Dom 5 history? Half scaling? The absolute worst dumpster fire of a patch we have ever been given?
We'll
All right,
just
we're
have-
getting a little
we'll just-
off topic.
We'll just have to
What-
include the Illwinter Please section early.
Yeah, exactly.
I shouldn't be unhinged. You guys are telling me to be unhinged, but
Yeah,
I guess you'll see in the
Be
comments.
unhinged, why not?
One thing regarding Cloud of Death, I just want to quickly bring up is I think it's hard for a lot of Death Nations to go heavy into Evo because there aren't too many heavy Death Nations that also cross path into like Elemental, with the exception of like Air. Like,
What do you mean?
Like where if you're a heavy Death Nation and you know that you can see that Cloud of Death is good, like when is an appropriate time to really go for Evo 7?
It depends.
If you want Wailing Winds.
It depends on what kind of Death Nation you are. If you're Death Air, yeah, you just go and get it for free.
Well,
Yeah, you get it for free.
like if you're going to 7, like most of the time when you go to 7, it's like Firestorm, it's Murdering Winter, you got Acid
Right.
Storm. So I mean, there are realistic reasons you want to go there. Shimmering Fields is another great spell. It gets one of my random stodes we talked about earlier. There's reasons to go up there. Like a heavy definition, like Scalaria probably has less reason, I guess, to go up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Um,
when I
So I just want to kind of bring that up, just get your thoughts on it. But going into our next segment, what are some? We kind of touched on this, going off track a little bit. But what are some of the cool things that we can really do with Evocation? Like some stuff that's kind of like out there.
I mean, there's stuff you can abuse about Evocation. If your opponent is brainlessly casting Evos, they're going to be in a world of hurt. There's lots of counterplay.
I would say Evocation is kind of unique in the fact that it has the remote army clear spell.
yes.
I guess
Balance in the
besides
Skies?
Leprosy is the only other one I think.
Leprosy's the best one, but
Balance from the Skies and Murdering Winter.
Flames from the Sky is a pretty funny spell.
it definitely has the.
Oh yeah, it's real funny when you're the
posers.
one on the receiving end.
Yeah,
Really.
well, stop doom stacking, idiots! Like, come on.
Yeah, but even when
It's-
you make
it's
like
pretty
smaller
funny.
armies and then they get flames like 2 times. You're
All right,
like,
I want to mention this though as a neat thing you can do with Evos. Thunderstrike used to be Mr. Big overrated scary spell army clear, and that was kind of always bullshit. But it does have range 100, so if you have a native air 3 or an air 2 with a gem, just slapping some thunder strikes down onto somebody who's got their mages in a blob as just a turn 1 just hoser to screw up their script is good. Is very funny.
I really
I
like
think that's a skill check,
sounds fun.
though.
Yeah, it is a skill check, but you know what? A lot of people will fail it. You know, you see
Well,
someone
but
box
that's
with
why
mages, fucking clap them with it. You know.
that's why people were using Thunderstrike so heavily in the first place, because they're like, oh, look at the power of turn 1 Thunderstriking, and then there's so much counterplay based on how Evos work.
The lion formation.
Line formation, they focus like the highest HP density on the field, so you just need to put, something that's going to eat that stuff in the way, and then you have all your other stuff that's going to kill all that crap behind it. Actually, Charlie, when first teaching me the game, there was a very good example of Thunderstrike trying to be abused by an opponent, and then he told me how to counter it, and I absolutely killed like 30 plus Mandrals or something.
Yeah,
it was a noob game, and that was back in 2017 or 2018.
Right. Yeah, again, we know more now than we did before, obviously. So, but
those situations absolutely still happen, both in even some of our games and even in Menti threads. It'll happen. I think some people will do it. Yeah, that's always it's always a fun one.
I do have a question though. Let's say you do have an air 2 or 3 mage and they're off scripting casting spells. What would you prefer them to cast?
Lightning bolts.
Okay, but those still evocation spells.
I mean, you mean like not in Evo? Oh,
I actually really like False Horror.
False Horror is pretty good.
Is that
casting False
I think
Horror?
for air mages though, I would rather air mages be casting evocations off script generally.
Oh, False Horror is Alt 6. I always forget about False Horror. Yeah, it's a good one.
Charlie, do those have fear?
What's that?
Do false horrors have a fear effect or
yes,
something?
Yes, they have fear effect.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, okay.
They're also easy to kill, and my issue with them is that I don't think they're usually decisive. Right?
Oh, there's some really interesting spells.
I mean, they're more decisive than a lightning bolt or a 45 Thunderstrike. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
I like them. I like shitting them out.
I understand that, and I think you could do some really interesting fear bombing things with them because it's spawning you something that has a fear effect, which is very interesting.
And you're going to go to Alteration 7 for Fog Warriors anyways.
But
if you're
I will say that, like,
it's a nice bonus.
I am on the fence about fear effects.
If people aren't 10 plus SR, like generally people will a lot of times try to field like elite armies and undervalue some of the chaffier units. And when they do that, Lightning Bolt can get lots and lots of value because it'll just hit some. If it hits some 70 gold elf pony or something like that, it's a near ideal scenario. But it like
listen, some of the coolest moments in Dominions for me has been due to evocation. So I actually like evocation. I'm just only leaning dog because of the points I made earlier. But I've seen a Van Jarl shocking grasp kill a dragon before. Like that's
Oh,
if the AI, you know what I mean?
If the AI if you could somehow get them to cast like the like shockwave or fire blast or something consistently, I'd like the school so much more. But the AI doesn't necessarily do that.
Right.
Oh, I have an old school one then. All right, M.A. Kalem, right? You put a little bit of SR on a Kalian Seraph. Mm-hmm. Put some Storm Guard on Bodyguard or whatever. Set him to attack once, and then he'll script Shockwave to clear PD.
Sure?
It's like a light rating, yeah.
I don't know if maybe that works.
Back in the
that's old school as fuck though. So I don't actually. I haven't tested that recently.
I think recently modern flying commanders with an attack in their script will use will like waddle up. I think.
Yeah, they'll walk forward. They should.
Right. Okay. Which is good because you can put attacks orders in your script to get your mages closer. That's a little bit of tech, but
so they're in range for Frozen Heart.
Wait, what? Yeah.
Is there a way around that though? Can you like force them to fly up?
Yeah, you just script fly attack. You got to be really good about copying that over there.
Wait, what?
You just
can't
got to script fly attack.
Oh, he's talking about when you steal Bogarus's the knight dude. I think has it.
Oh God! Oh, you could steal a script from frickin'.
I thought they patched it out.
They might have patched that out. To be fair,
they patched out.
But maybe they
Fire
shouldn't have. Okay.
Oh, by the way, I know we're mentioning some of these niche spells in Evocation. Some of it I don't feel like I've seen enough, or there's enough actual information from the community, like Stream of Life. But there's absolutely some niche cases, like Chain Lightning and Niffle Flames are great spells, but that's a 9. There's
Pillar of
also the
Fire.
globals that are in here that we're not talking about. Wrath of God, Perpetual, all that stuff.
So I do want to say that Stream of Life is known. Stream of Life is cast by a lot of the tournament players, or the players of the last tournament, as like a thug hoser or SC hoser, because it's got that flat death chance.
No, it's magic resistant.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's MRN, and then it's got a flat death chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen that spammed in a similar manner to how like Petrify is used as like a
Great spell.
Yeah, it's like a
It's not as good as Petrify, but it's a little easier to cast.
Yeah, it's only N3.
Well, N2 is no, that's N3.
Yeah. But N3 is not hard to get at that stage of the game.
Yeah, you got Vine Kings and Worm That Walks.
Yeah.
And then all the Naiads.
Naiads are homesick.
Also want to bring up
are they?
Before we neglect it entirely, Pillar of Fire makes fire damage relevant again.
Yeah.
I got flamed in the comment section about that. Oh, I had to apologize about that the first episode.
Shit.
I went back and tested it, and it does get cast.
I guess witch hunters are pog, huh?
No.
Got him.
Got him.
No. I've talked so much about our past podcast. No, they're still dog. I have not changed my opinion.
I will issue a slight apology for my POG rating of Witch Hunters, because I realized that the Femini Sorcerer, if the Witch Hunter was just the Femini Sorcerer, it would be a better unit.
That's from End in their Plains Forts.
Yes.
If those of you who don't know what the hell that is.
Yeah, that's a lot cheaper.
It's
got the same path.
The End is gross.
It's an F1S1 with a F1
I wouldn't say
S1
End's
random.
gross.
I like
End
it.
is a highly contentious nation that either people say is absolute rush bait, or is like, or some people are like they absolutely love him, but I don't know where I stand with them.
Well, we're gonna save that for a future
episode. To get back on track a little bit, I would say one of the things about Evocation that stands out to me is that a lot of the times, the spells that you want your mages to start casting off script are in that tree.
That's true. We didn't talk about Starfires is in this tree, isn't it?
Yes.
Starfires is in here. Astral Fires is also in here, and I also really like Astral Fires. I think it gets a little underrated because it's a little bit narrow who can cast it, but it's a good spell.
Yeah, Starfires is actually pretty solid if you can get it to off script. Yeah, the issue is a lot of times in Dominions is the targeting AI, so that's why like AI mods for the game are really important. So you don't want the mod to absolutely change the game, but you definitely would prefer the game not to off script certain spells rather than others. Probably more for a future episode, but yeah, that's definitely why Evo is probably more contentious than it would be otherwise.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Does anybody else want to add any kind of like weird niche things that they've encountered with different Evocation spells?
It's not really niche, but Solar Rays is also an Evocation. Solar Rays is a pretty common anti-thug or anti-undead thug spell. So.
Absolutely, I agree.
I would just say cloud spells are pretty. They're a pretty big recommendation. I would say. I would just say if you're going to use clouds, You do not have to use an elite that can withstand the cloud. Absolutely recruit some militia or some other unit to sit in the clouds and die while you kill their elites. A lot of players, even that are mentors, like refuse to use clouds unless they're omni-resistant to it. So, don't be afraid to lose your troops.
This all goes back to our original point. Build troops, guys.
I have two last things to say about Evocation. Want to give a dishonorable mention to Vine Arrow, worst spell in tree. Fuck off. And I want to give an
Hold on a second.
And I want to give an honorable mention to Reading Rainbow, the least cast global, but domes are great.
Celestial
flying shards and fire darts are absolutely worse than Mine Arrow. Fuck you. I hate those spells. Fuck flying shards and fuck you.
Hey, have you ever seen one of the old Dominions games, like 3 or 4, in the turn-based system, casting Vine Arrow and just waiting while the single projectile flies across the field, and the entire game is
You unlocked the core memory. Oh my god.
Oh no. Terrible. Watching old Dom videos and you're just watching this guy watch the Vine Arrow fly across the screen. It's like, can you please speed up the game?
They didn't have that fucking
some of those old Dom videos are so unwatchable.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Storm of Thorns is a good spell.
If it lands. If it's point blank, Storm of Thorns, Pog.
Yes.
Far away, dog. I have seen the Storm of Thorns save my ass, but when it's shot far away, I fucking hate it.
All right, folks. That has been your All Stats No Res podcast, episode 3 on Evocations. Join us next time where we take on gem baiting.